Hey everybody, it's my pleasure to present my old boss. I call him still. I call Elihu boss. I call Robert Mr. Bobb. Back to talk about being the co-chair of the DC Police Commission on Reform, if I got that name correct. And hey, welcome, Barbara. Tell us what the commission was all about.
Police Commission on Reform, if I got that name correct.
In one moment,
it's the DC Police Reform Commission. We were, and I served as the co-chair of that commission, along with a Professor Christy Lopez from Georgetown University. I'd like to give you a little bit about Christy. If you'll recall, Zinni, when I was city manager of Oakland, we had those road cops, right?
Mm-hmm.
Called the Midnight Riders.
Yeah.
The guys who went into West Oakland. They ginned up their arrest records by falsely arresting individuals. And then we were under a federal consent decree. Well, Christy Lopez was one of the first monitors of the Oakland Police Department. I didn't know that. I don't even remember her from that time. Her dad, she is from California, and her dad is a former police officer. But now she's head of a big program up at Georgetown University Law School. And so it was good to reconnect with her. And so she served as our co-chair of the Police Reform Commission. So we were a 20-person commission appointed by the city council, given unfettered responsibilities to examine policies, practices, and procedures of the Metropolitan Police Department, and also to look at ways on which we can make significant recommendations going forward. I would say that right after the riots, right after the major protests that took place in the district this past summer, and after George Floyd's death and Breonna Taylor's death, our city council passed emergency legislation that restricted police actions in a number of ways. And so we have, our commission have built upon those recommendations, and we've gone even further with respect to police reforms in the district. So we have a 20-member commission, 18 with Christy and I, and it represented some, fairly, individuals from the community who knew the community, who lived in the district of Columbia, who were advocates in their own rights. Not only were many of our commission, we had very talented attorneys on our commission. We had an advocate for youth on our commission. We had a former Metropolitan Police executive on the commission, now retired. And we had the Attorney General for the district represented on the commission as well as one of the most intriguing persons on the commission, at least for me. I didn't realize how significant sex trafficking was in our district of Columbia. Mm-hmm. We have, an executive who runs a program in the district that addresses the need of persons who are being sex trafficked in our community, and she herself was a sex trafficker. And we also had the iconic and former Bill Clinton's lawyer, Bobb Bennett, on the commission. And he brought significant experience in legal from his background as a federal prosecutor and from the Justice Department, and renowned lawyer. Unfortunately, many of our recommendations he voted against because we were taking a different tactic and a different approach. Some of the recommendations the commission recommendations were broad. Not only did we heard from the community, we heard from youth in the community, we heard from top police reformers from around the country. We borrowed a lot from the city of Oakland. Candidly, the city of Oakland is, at the forefront of many of these reforms. with its new police, I think it's a police commission that they have in Oakland. So we borrowed from Oakland, from Seattle, from a number of our jurisdictions. But at the end of the day, we made our recommendations DC specific. We use those from other jurisdictions as, reference guides for the work that we did. We held 90. We met 90. We had 90 meetings, not including the the sub meetings. As you know, then you have a commission, but then you have 2 or 3 people who are meeting. So we had 90 meetings over a period of time. We issued 60 very specific and detailed reports. We were fortunate to have as our project management a firm out of Oakland, California, which is called Impact Justice. And they served as our project managers. And so we did a lot of, very significant work. We will be before the city council on, I think, May 24th. There'll be a joint meeting of the city council's judiciary committee with the council as a whole. They will hear our recommendations in our report. So we did not come out with a recommendation to defund the police, as has been, somewhat of the battle cry in a number of jurisdictions around the country. We came up with a report that decentered the police, which means that there are services that the police provides, and that those services can be provided by other agencies of the district government. And so if you do the math, right, if you don't need the police providing those services, then you can also reduce the number of police officers that you need over a period of time. We also made it clear in our report that there is a need for police, the need for the police, and that the police are important to our community. But that our police agency has to be a lot more transparent in how it does its business. To use the old phrase, I'm sure you're familiar with, your police, you gotta be able to look under the hood if you're citizens of the community. And so we want our police department to be a lot more transparent in the way it does its business. For example, traffic stops. Those number of traffic stops were requested from the police department. The ACLU had to sue our police department just to get that data with respect to traffic stops.
You had to sue?
Had to sue, and it went to court. They finally settled the case, but we want our police department to be a lot more transparent. I will say this, and I've made this comment in a number of interviews recently. While we have many recommendations to reform the Metropolitan Police Department, let it be known nationally that on January 6th, when the capital of the United States was security was breached, it was the Metropolitan Police Department that stood tall in the saddle and helped to bring that situation under control. So the men and women of the Metropolitan Police Department are, they're stellar. I mean, they're good. Obviously, in any agency, you have bad apples, right? Mm-hmm. But we have a new young chief who has, grew up in the District of Columbia, entered the police force as a cadet, and now has risen to the rank of chief of police. And so, we're cheering for his success, obviously.
You said that, echoes that you looked at police tactics. What did you find that needed to be changed?
Oh, there are a number of things. For example, jump out squads. The police, goes into a neighborhood, they see young African-American men, boys, men, brown citizens, and let's say they have a barge in their uniform, in their clothing. You know, you have these cops driving down the street, seeing these young folks, and they jump out and they start, interviewing them, looking for guns. It's an intimidation. So we, one of our recommendations, and I think the chief is changing the policy, the new chief, and that as these jump out squads, they're making an assumption that someone is doing something bad when they're not, and of course, then you have a encounter with the police department, with the police, and so that's one recommendation: eliminate those jump out squads. Another recommendation, which is now being considered in the George Floyd federal legislation, is elimination of the no-knock warrants. We would also like that when our police are serving a warrant, that the police also have body-worn cameras as well. That is something that is still up for debate. But no-knock warrants. We also have in our recommendation qualified immunity, which is part of the George Floyd bill and making its way through Congress, but we've incorporated it into our recommendation. One of the other recommendations we have, which is drawing a lot of concern, both at the police as well as with parents and educators and school teachers, but Oakland has done it successfully, is that remove the footprint of the police from the schools.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. What we find is that when kids are in trouble in the school and you bring the police, it doesn't de-escalate, it escalates these issues. And we heard from young people from across the district. And so our recommendation is to remove the police footprint from the schools. Now, where we think the police will be a lot more effective, and that is working with community organizations, and that is on safe passages for kids coming to school. Now, the police have great intelligence about issues that could happen on the campus, so they can address those issues before they get on the school campus. The other thing that we're in our recommendations is that we're proposing that the police that warrant arrest warrants aren't served on kids at school. I mean, and that ICE doesn't come on campus to serve its arrest warrants as well. I mean, just think about it. I mean, the police they know where these kids live, right? They know they can arrest them if they need to be on their way to school, but it doesn't have to happen on school campus. And so that's one of our recommendations as well. I mean, there are 60 recommendations, and I can be here all night going through all 60 of those recommendations, but just to highlight some of the major ones. For example, just on the school side, we're saying that you have, on a percentage basis, there are more security guards on a student percentage basis, on a student per capita basis for students, than there are social workers, mental health workers, counselors. So we're putting our money in the wrong place. We should put our funds into those types of programs as well. So that's one of the recommendations that's in our report, among many. The other one, I think is going to create some, in addition to qualified immunity, which the unions have already boldly come out strongly against, is that, if you're a police officer and let's say you have an infraction in your first year on the force, but now you're going to be promoted to some other position, there's no opportunity to look back and see the full range of that individual's employment with the police department, because their records are changed every 3 years. When you apply for your position with the city of Oakland, you looked all the way back, right?
Yep.
So your whole, as you get promoted, your whole promotion, your whole career was examined. Well, in the case of police, it's only for 3 years, and then doesn't look forward.
Shouldn't
By
it be law? That kind of automatic sweeping of possible past bad deeds.
Yep, you only look for 3 years. You don't look all the way back to the full range of a person's career. So you want that problem changed. And also for our police complaint board, we want that board to be restructured, reorganized in a way in which we have at least 3 members under age 23, 24 on that board, in addition to some of the adults who serve on the board, because these young folks bring they bring different experiences from their interactions or non-interaction, as it were, with the police. We also have as one of our recommendations, and that is that we want the city council to increase the funding for the police cadet program. The mayor put in a police cadet program. It provides for college education, employment. At the end of the program, those individuals, as they reach the appropriate age level, apply and they're ready to become police officers in the community. So we want more police officers from the community. They know the community, they grew up in the community. They're a lot more, more sensitive to the issues within the community. And so last year when that appropriation was stricken from the mayor's budget. Well, this year we're strongly advocating that recommendation that would take increased funding for the police cadet program, so we recruit our own from the neighborhood, from the community. So that's one of the, among many recommendations, that's one that we feel very strongly about. The other thing too is one of the themes of our report is that one of our themes in our report is that we don't need the police for every action in the community. And so what we find is that what we have found is that we call the police for everything.
Yeah.
It's like so there are a number of services that 911 calls for police, wherein you do not need the police. And we've learned from some jurisdictions around the country. And that is, you have in a 911 center, just instead of just 911 call operators, then you have social workers, you have mental health workers, you have doctors, you have nurses. So if a call comes in where someone is in a crisis where you do not need the police, then you can dispatch one of those individuals. Now, or the police can go with them and then leave and go back on duty, because the mental health workers or nurse or social worker can address those problems.
Right.
You also have individuals, as you know from your days in city government, you have people who call 911 for everything. I mean, they're chronic callers, right?
Yeah.
So, and sometimes people just call 911 because they just want to talk to someone. Not that they have a problem or an issue. And so we want to be able to triage those calls as well. And then
suicide calls, or are some of those calls suicide calls? Maybe the person doesn't know that there's a suicide hotline, or
yes, we do have a suicide hotline, but it's not staffed 24 hours, 7 days a week, and so that's one of the things that we want to see: the suicide hotline staffed 24/7, 7 days a week. And sometimes even on domestic situations, some of those can be de-escalated by not having the police, but some of them require the police to be tethered. The other side of recommendation, of course, is that we want, and I think the chief agrees with this as well, and that is training the police to be on more de-escalation as opposed to escalation of a situation. One recommendation we have that I think is going to cause some issues, and that is traffic stops. Certain traffic violations where you don't need the police, but you can't. I'm not a big proponent of having civilians issue tickets if someone is speeding, right? Because the first, I was telling someone the other day when on my first day as city manager, when I arrived in Richmond, Virginia to be the city manager, I was met by 2 city employees to inform me that a police officer had been shot and killed on Church Hill for a minor traffic stop. And just recently, when we saw this officer on TV who was just murdered because, pulled someone over and then he was murdered. But certain small traffic violations, you don't have a license plate that's bent the wrong. I mean, there's just certain things that we have to work our way through in terms of certain traffic things that we want to have not require police services, but require some other types of services.
That begs the question, if those policies were implemented in Minnesota, is it fair to say that Dante Wright would not have been shot?
Oh yeah, definitely. Look, some of the police experts, when a police officer calls you, when you're stopped, right, they take you to the back of the car. They don't just let you sit in that car if they're going to stop you and they want you to exit the car. If you exit the car, they take you around the car or near the police cruiser, right? So you don't have an opportunity to jump back in the car. And so some professional police executives would say that that was not very good police tactic. And that, what I hear from police executives, the normality is that when someone is stopped, you remove them from the car, take them around to either the trunk of the car or to the police cruiser. In that case, it was not. And then that was really a sad situation because how do you mistake? I just, in talking to many police officers, it's hard to, for some with whom I've had a conversation with, to wrap their heads around mistaking your taser for your firearm. But tragically, it happened. Tragically. And there are just too many incidents wherein, Black and brown residents are killed by the police. Now, I would also say that, to get myself in a little trouble, we have to find a way to address Black on Black crime in our communities as well. I mean, we have police, and, we have to deal with the police killing. Don't get me wrong on that. And that's just tragic. I mean, we go back to the Black codes. We go back, from a historical standpoint, we were over-policed and tragically policed. But we also have to address the issue of the, gun violence in our neighborhoods, Black on Black killings, we're killing each other, we're taking senseless lives. I mean, we're eliminating ourselves from some of these senseless killings that we commit in our community upon ourselves. And so we have to address those as
well. How confident are you that these measures will be adopted? You alluded to some problem earlier, so I'd like to, expand on that a little bit.
I'll go back to what I said to the chairman of the city council and to every city council member that we met with. And this is a playbook that you're very familiar with. City councils put together committees, right? Or commissions. They issue a report. They give you a little plaque thing, a little thing to thank you for your service, right? And nothing happens. Well, we told the, and every commission member, every time we met with the city council, it was my job with the council members. We were issuing our report. We expect that our report is not going to sit on a shelf. And we have a commitment from every member with whom we've had a conversation that they're going to take our commission report seriously. It's in depth. It's facts-based. It's not an anecdotal. It's based on evidence and research. And that's why the city council will have a meeting of the whole for us to present. I mean, we present our report and findings individually to every city council member, but now we have an opportunity to bring it forward to the council of the whole on May 23rd or May 24th, whatever that date So I'm very confident. I'm very confident that some of the things we recommended cannot be done overnight. Like expanding the police complaint board. You need funding, and that may be a multi-year funding. Creating an auditor position within the police department, we want that done immediately. Excuse me, in the current budget.
What you were around for the Oscar Grant problem and the riot, and you were city administrator, and actually, I stand. Yeah, you came in. Actually, you left. I apologize. Oscar Grant happened in 2009. So you didn't.
I'm having.
Oh, are you okay?
I'm good.
Okay. Oh, yeah. All right. I don't want to lose you on the air or off the air. All right. Cool. I'm going to play this for you. This is what I'm playing is a group of kids that in the middle of the Oscar Grant riot, I went down to make a YouTube video of what was going on, just report. And I was crossing the street and these dudes said, YouTube. And this is what they said to me right then and there. And I want your reaction because it actually applies to today. That's why I'm playing it. Here it is. And so,
you can't stop violence with violence. You can't fight violence with violence. That's what we're trying to tell you. Not the first thing. They one of the biggest gangs out. They worried about our gangs. They're the biggest gangs out right now. Killing us out here, man. Beating our ass. About the source, though. You can't fight violence with violence. You got to get it. You got to stop these kids while they're young, man. That's all it is. Yeah. This is not right, though. This is injustice, man. They killed him execution style. This is he ain't even killed right now. He ain't even killed. He tied up. Face down. He didn't even get to see a new year, man. See a new year or nothing. For nothing. And the man asked not to get killed, bro. It's called the party. He said he had a daughter, but they killed him, man. Somebody got it with a taser. Hold on. It's not an accident. If somebody on their ground, what did you pull out a gun for if you on your handcuffs? It's not an accident. You don't need to pull out a gun if somebody in handcuffs. That's not an accident. That's you doing what you wanted to do. Basically, you abusing your authority. That's all that was. That's violence trying to stop violence. You can't do that. That's it's not right. I see the modern day racism. They killed that young black brother. He had a daughter on the way. He had a daughter on the way. Modern day lynch. Modern day lynch right there, bro. You can't leave the academy. You can't tell. Where do we go from here as a society? We have to come together as black people. Come together and stop all this racism. Not just black people. You gotta come together as all. Everybody in Oakland. That's why Oakland talked about like this. Cause don't nobody do nothing in Oakland about nothing. But when we started doing stuff, that's when we start putting out new laws. We should stop firing teachers. Man, the man, he walked around like he got stuff. He ain't finna. He walked around. He did what he could do, but there's nothing he could do. He did not say. He left it. He did it. He said it what he had to say. But at the end, though, what's gonna be done is we gotta show us better than you could tell us. So that's tell him to stop treating us like we animals, like we ain't got no type of value on life. We human beings. We do what we gotta do to survive. All this killing us, black Africans, you feel it ain't cool. Well, look at this.
So I play that because I have the feeling, Robert, that excuse me. Did I play it today? When is it going to stop?
That's a good question. I've been fighting that question for a long time. When is the violence going to stop in our community? Guns. I remember when I was managing a certain school district, and you have some of the kids putting their pictures on Facebook with firearms and their guns, and and I remember telling one young person, I said, your pictures all over Facebook, you got these firearms and guns and that sort of thing, you're showing them off. I said, someday you might want to run for president of the United States. Your life's going to change, and so those visions are going to follow you all the way to when you're running for office or something of this nature, or you're getting some significant appointment, or you might become mayor of a city, city council member. Those are going to be how people are going to define you later on in life. And we in the District of Columbia, we we're having a rise in homicides, gun shootings. I mean, just last week, some gentleman walked into an apartment and killed mom and her daughter and injured a young baby, and then tried to set the apartment on fire. It's sad that it happens. What we're doing is we're taking the lives of individuals in the community. Two young football players were most recently murdered in, I think it was Prince George's County. One week, and the second one another week. Two individuals who were really good friends. So we're just snuffing out our future Barack Obamas, our future Kamala Harris's, our future, leaders through gun violence in our own neighborhoods. But we also have to hold the police accountable as well. I mean,
what struck me about that exchange is the one kid said they're the biggest gangs of all, and these kids pay attention. Again, I was just walking across 17th Street, and they spotted me from watching YouTube, and that was May 2nd of 2009, which shows you how media was changing then, right? Mm-hmm. And I can play it at anywhere, anytime, and it still applies. And why can't the police be the mentors of those kids rather than the kids think that they're the biggest gangs of all? Because their retort is, hey, look, you want us to behave, but look at how you guys are treating us, right?
Well, that's you have police officers just walking up to kids and then harassing them. I mean, it happens. And so that's not a good look. And I think that's where a lot of urban police chiefs are trying to change that behavior within their agencies. We have a police officer, I think the police officer was suspended just recently when, a young person stood in his face and said something about, "Are you going to shoot me? Are you going to shoot me?" And the police officer said, "Well, do you have a knife?" And I think that police officer it comes as a result of the unfortunate situation that happened most recently in Ohio.
Right.
I don't think that was the right thing for the police officer to say. I mean, why? It's an unnecessary confrontation. I mean, it's not nice for the person standing in his face and say, "Are you going to shoot me? You're going to shoot me?" Find a way to de-escalate. And we're just treated poorly. And cops sometimes they treat Black folks different than they treat white folks. I mean, let's stick with the reality. And I'll give you a good example. In Lafayette, Louisiana, a young Black male, not that he didn't have some issues in his past record, right? He was followed by the police. He was at a service station, and something happened. He was gunned down and killed. There was no de-escalation at all. Well, you didn't hear about his case nationally. A week prior, there was a white guy in the same city with similar situation. The police followed him, they let him out the car, they took him to where he needed to go, whole 9 yards. In his case, they de-escalated his case. In the case of this young African-American male, doesn't matter what the other background was, he was shot and killed. There was no de-escalation at all by that cop, by the police. And that happened. We didn't get a national play on it, but it happened in Lafayette, Louisiana. So, so that's why police chiefs are really seeking ways for their officers to de-escalate, and they're training them on methodologies for, to de-escalate a situation and not killed. You know, we have to remember that the police, when you become a police officer, you're authorized, to take a life. President Obama, when he created his commission on policing, which was headed up by a former chief, was co-chaired by a former chief of police from D.C., Charles Ramsey. They came out in their report. It's a pretty voluminous report, but a couple of themes in that report is that we want our police officers to give up being a warrior mentality, and become, I'm not asking them to become social workers, but guardian. We want them to be guardians of the public's trust, not warriors. You suit up every day. And, we have to recognize that policing is a difficult and tough job, but we want them, in the report says, not the warrior mentality, but a guardian mentality. Work with the community for and with the community. And, there's also, it's difficult when you see some of the horrific things that are happening, that have happened and currently happening, with so many African Americans who have been murdered by the police when they did not have a gun.
Yeah.
And so I don't have that statistic in front of me, but it's pretty stark between 2017 and 2000 of this year, the number of African Americans who were shot and killed by police when they had no gun. And so it's, our community wants the police. They want to be respected by the police, but they don't want to be killed by the police. On the same token, we don't want our community killing each other either.
Yeah.
So,
it's like the kid that said from May 2nd of 2009, he said it's like an execution. And it seems like these are played out now. Back then, we didn't have smartphones. Well, actually, we did. That's why we got Oscar Grant, but not to the quality we have them today. Hey, Robert, I want to have you back to talk more about this, because I'd like to talk also about the legacy of George Floyd and how it's going to affect our future. But my last question is, how do we find an alternative term to defund the police? And the reason why I ask is because it's costing the Democratic Party seats in Congress. What do we do?
Say that question again.
Yeah. How do we find an alternative to the term defund police? It seems like it's costing us seats in Congress, the Democratic Party.
I don't think, you really think it's costing us seats on the defund?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, about 10 this past term. Yeah, a number of people have pointed to it. It's been a problem because I thought
individuals who ran on the platform of defund lost their seats. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not a proponent of the defund, but I'm a proponent. If you're going to reduce the size of your police force, it should be done. I don't want to sound managers-ish, but it has to be done with analytics, data, and that sort of thing. And look, let's remember though, in many of our African American communities, they want the more police. They don't want less police. And so we have to take all of those things into consideration. But there are services, and I was just on a panel with the chief of police this past weekend, and her comment was, there are things the police are doing that someone else can do and should be doing. You don't need a police for every call. You need, it could be a network with others in the community. And to the extent that those things happen, then you can reduce the services, you can reduce the number of police officers. But that's going to take a while.
Yeah, Berkeley Mayor Jesse Aglin, I mispronounce his last name, but he has put out an order to stop writing tickets for traffic violations. Police.
Yeah, I mean, for minor traffic violations, do you need to write a ticket for a minor traffic violation? I don't know. I get enough of those red cameras because I'm forgetting red light cameras myself.
Maybe
in DC, I think we make $100 million a year just off red light cameras, and now they're putting these cameras on stop signs.
Oh my God! The next step is somebody will buy a fleet of drones with spray cans on them. Start spraying.
That's funny, man. Yeah, I would love to go back then and discuss, some of these things more in depth, and also maybe we can talk major NFL. I know that are you going to be at the draft on Thursday?
Yep, got the draft on Thursday. 16th year credentialed, and I'm going to take care of my people this time, though. I don't think we're out of the virus stuff yet. I think it's too soon. So
you don't stay home.
Yeah, take care of mom. So that's the thing.
Okay, so I want to get. I've heard the predictions on First Take and all those shows. So who will be the first 5 in the draft?
Oh, Trevor Lawrence is going to be a Jacksonville Jaguar. I don't think he's going to. Trevor Lawrence. Yeah, Trevor Lawrence will be. I don't think he's going to be the star. I think he will be. I believe the Jets are going to take Justin Fields from Ohio State, number 2. The Niners are going to take Trey Young, number 3. That's my prediction.
And I'm going to take the kid from Alabama.
No, that could happen, but personally, I don't think Mac Jones is going to be a successful quarterback in the NFL, and the reason is he comes from a really easy position and a system that asked him. He really didn't have to do a lot. Okay, it was a well-designed system in a very weak conference in the middle of the coronavirus, and I just don't believe that he rises to the level of a Justin Fields or even Mac Jones. I think it's not Mac Jones, but Zach. BYU. I think Zach is a star, and if anything, Mac. There are scenarios where Mac Jones just fell out of the first round. That could happen. He's got a DUI under his belt. He's got a photograph of him with a pot belly after the national championship. So, I mean, it just doesn't, for me, personally, ring that he's going to be this great playoff-making quarterback at the next level. That's just me. I could be wrong. Hey, in fact, I got to start my draft. Hey, Robert, stick around backstage. Hey, everybody, stick around. We're going to shift in a few minutes. Subscribe to Zinni62 and bookmark Oakland News Now. That ends this broadcast. Stick around backstage, Robert.